Morning. So the small project for today that I'm going to work on is going to be a trellis. Is it a trellis? I think it's a trellis. It's for the cucumbers to grow down, not up. So I did picked up some lattice. It's like a PVC type material lattice, so it won't rot. I'm going to use some of these cedar boards that I milled and cut so that I can make some supports, because that lattice is not very sturdy. It's real thin. And I'm just going to kind of do a real simple setup to where it creates a overhang where the vining part of the cucumbers can go over the edge of the raised bed and then crawl down, instead of what I know a lot of people will make it to where they climb up, and either way they'll be off the ground. That's the goal. Is I don't want the cucumbers on the ground. We did it that way last 2 years and it was fine, but every so often you get one of those that you miss. You don't see it, it's hiding under there, it's on the ground, and then it gets all soggy and yellow. And we actually had 2 of them. I think it's on one of the videos from last year that turned orange. It was crazy. They were like orange, not like bright yellow, no, orange, like a deep golden orange. But anyway, I'm going to show you the trellis that I'm going to build for that, and I'm also going to show you me and Mrs. Howell made an arbor yesterday for the grapes. So let me show you that before I get to work on the trellis. Well, there it is. So I just used some of the cedar that I had. A couple of 4x4s for the side posts. A couple of 4x4s for the angled support brackets. These were basically 2x4-ish. And then I ripped some other stuff that's like a 1x2.5 or something. And I just kind of cut the angle on the edge so it looks nice, a little more decorative than just having squared off edges. Same thing with the top lattice, or the top little sections there. Cut those at a 45 just to give it a little something, little flair. And it's all just held together by good exterior decking screws. I think they're 3-inch, so that should hold real nice. And then we dug 2 holes. These are about 1.5 foot in the ground. And this side I already had that grape, so I went ahead and tied it over to start training it to climb. And then once it gets up, it should keep going. And I'm gonna have to pick up another one and put it on this side, and I'll plant one over here real nice and close to that leg and let it climb up. And the goal is it should have 2 of them climbing up both sides and then right over the top, and the grapes will hang down and we'll be able to pick them and eat them straight off the vine, like you know, some kind of fantasy movie. That's the idea. But let's get over here, like I said, for the cucumbers, because I want to show you the plan and then execute and then let you see how it turns out. So the plan is pretty simple. Cucumbers are up here. They're starting to vine, so I've been starting to kind of train them, pulling them up to come over this edge. And then this lattice, like I said, it's the PVC stuff. It's a little bit flimsy, so I'm going to probably put 3, maybe 4 supports that will attach here and go down to the ground at an angle, and then that'll just sit on top of it. And then the idea, pretty simple, is the vine of the cucumber will come over and it'll grow down and across to cover that whole thing, hopefully, and there'll be cucumbers all over it. what I also am going to do before I put that in, I'm going to move it, and I'm going to lay some garden fabric, and I'm going to put wood chips. That way I don't have a bunch of grass and stuff growing up behind it and then up through the underside of it, because once I put that in place and the stuff's growing on it, I won't have real access underneath to get those weeds and grass taken care of. So I'm going to put the wood chips, and that'll prevent anything from growing up from the bottom. So that's the plan. So I'm actually going to do a little full detail of how I'm doing it. Never done it this way before, but we'll see. If you like it, let me know. This is all of my materials for this project, not to include bucket full of wood chips and one piece of PVC lattice. But what I've got here is, these are 4 2x4s, generally speaking. My blade was getting gummed up. You see the wave in the boards there? That's from the sawmill not being set up with the clean blade. But they'll still work for this project. Those are basically 4-foot long 2x4s. My garden cloth. This is some cheap stuff we had from a while back, so I'm going to go ahead and use that. My gloves, circular saw, drill, screws. In this case, all I need is 8 long screws. So I'm using these decking screws. They're good exterior. They can be used anywhere, anything. And I'll need 12 shorter screws. I had these already laying around, so those are the ones I'm going to use. The longer screws are going to be used to anchor the top of these to that top board on the raised bed. And the shorter screws are going to go through the face of the lattice to hold it to these boards. The fabric, garden fabric, landscape fabric, whatever you want to call it, that's going to go on the ground along the front side here over that grass. Wood chips are going to go on top of that. And then I'm going to have the lattice coming down at an angle. So that's what I got there. Along with the speed square and my pencil to mark, I'll cut those edges at a 45-degree angle, or actually it'll be more of an angle than 45. I'll show you how I do that when I get to it, to get the right angle for this to sit nice. And then safety, I got my gloves, eye protection, and a rake to spread out the wood chips. So let's get to work. So I'm just going to use this piece as my guide on. And then I'm going to eyeball my level to where I line the corner of this right here, right up to that line of that board. Because that board is pretty much up and down with the side of the garden bed. So somewhere in that general ballpark where this is in contact with the ground the way I want it. That gives me the angle that I need. And then I'm going to draw that line right there. So that should put me right on there. But here's the catch. If I cut that all the way down, that's going to be an unnecessary bunch of wood getting cut out of there. So what I'm actually going to end up doing is I'm going to take that same angle, I'm going to transfer it over the same thickness as this board, but I'm going to drop it down a little bit. Right? And what's going to happen by doing that, I'm going to put that same line on the opposite side, like that.
And what I want is, I want it to have this thickness of it. We've made our 2 marks. This one is irrelevant now. That was just my initial one from the corner. So now I have that, and I want it to be, I want the top of this to be level, right? I want this to be flat. But if I cut it perfectly flat, right, I could use my square. In this case, I would put it right on that line, and I would draw a line this way. And I would cut off this and this. But then this is going to be a ledge, right? Now that's not a big ledge, it's not going to be a big gap, but my my lattice would have to make a really sharp turn, or there'd be a gap here that the cucumbers would have to go across. They'd probably be fine going across that size of a gap. But what I'm going to do instead is I'm actually going to adjust that angle down, and this I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. But I'm going to bring it down here. I'll probably do something like this. And I think I can get away with that amount of an arch. So I think the lattice will be able to curve that amount without being a problem. And so the top will have a nice little curve and then follow the rest of this right down. Originally I didn't plan on doing that, so I'm going to need to use my not my Sawzall, but my jigsaw to make that curve. Good enough. Let me cut the other ones and then we'll assemble everything. Okay, so as I was going, I realized I need my tape measure. That also goes into the mix. And I need a drill bit to pre-drill for the larger screws that are holding the 2x4s to the ledge of the raised bed. I'm doing that just because I don't want to take the risk of cracking and splitting those 2x4s. So I'm going to pre-drill, then anchor them. And from looking at what I've got, I may actually only be able to use 1 screw per. So I'll only need 4 long screws instead of 8 long screws. But no big deal, we'll make it work. And that's it. So it really didn't take me any time, and here's what we get. Clean and simple. And the idea hopefully will be all those cucumbers will come right over the top and they'll grow down and across this whole thing. I might have to train them a little bit to make them go across instead of just going straight down, but I hope they fill that whole thing. You can see the little curve to it. I ended up splitting this one when I put the small screw in, but I think it'll be fine. You see the little vine right there is already coming over the top. I'm going to try to train all these little guys, have them come this way. But that's all it is. It's just leaning against that. That's just sitting on the ground. And then there's 3 screws, one at the top, one generally close to the middle. I was a little higher than in the dead center. And then one down at the bottom and just right across. So it's only 4 long screws, 12 short screws, 4 2x4s that are each 4 foot long, and 1 piece of lattice. You can use regular lattice, wooden stuff, but I did the PVC because I want it to last. And I think that looks nice just the way it sits now. And I think it's going to last real nice and long because I used cedar for the wood and PVC for the lattice. So hopefully it does what I want it to do, and we'll give you an update later on that. But that's it. Nothing big, nothing to it. Got it done, and I'm gonna get over to my next little something that I'm doing, but I'm gonna let you guys get out of here and go do something at your house, in your homestead, and be productive. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, tell a friend, and come and check out the next video.